Welcome to Cannabiz New York. In each episode, you'll get a behind-the-scenes look at the cannabis business. Two leaders in the industry tell all, Elizabeth Case and Jerry Kremer, from the law firm of Ruskin Moscou Faltischek. You can find this show at www.rmfpc.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Now, here are the hosts of Cannabiz New York, attorneys Elizabeth Case and Jerry Kremer.
Hi, Liz.
Hi, Jerry.
How are you?
Great. I can't wait to get into this.
Well, I tell you, we're live this week because there's just so much going on. And we think as the premier law firm, when it comes to dealing with cannabis issues and licensing, that we really had to go live to get out a lot of, key information to the public. It's almost hard for me to say where to begin, but why don't you pick up, Liz, on the fact that all of a sudden the floodgates are open?
The floodgates are open. It's kind of pandemonium in New York all over again, because yesterday there was yet another hearing from OCM wherein they adopted all of the regulatory guidelines and framework for adult use cannabis. I mean, we're now talking about over 700 pages of regulations that govern cannabis, the infrastructure of cannabis in New York. Of course, that includes medical and hemp and all the other cannabis-related enterprises. But really, it was a huge meeting because the OCM, the Office of Cannabis Management, is faced with a lot of controversy right now. There's a huge litigation that stopped the rollout of all of the justice-involved dispensaries, which was very unfortunate, frustrating, and it's created this logjam again for what the cannabis business looks like in New York. So yesterday, I think OCM had such an important hearing to try and rectify the troubles that it faces and rejigger this program. And most importantly, after adopting all the guidelines, they intimated that applications would be open on October 4th for adult use licenses, including cultivation, processing, distribution, micro businesses, and retail dispensaries. And this is a really big deal because I think they're just trying to level the playing field in response to the injunction that is still standing out of Ulster County.
Well, I guess, Liz, the $64,000 question plus is when you think about it, politically what happened. And, I can, from the standpoint of having been a legislator and been involved in the legislative process, it's very clear that from the very outset of this whole process, they just didn't get it right. They created something which was supposed to be a smooth running thing, modeled after some other states. And then we turn around and it's now, September 2023, and you have hundreds and hundreds of people out there, disabled veterans, women business owners, a variety of people who want to be in the cannabis retail business, distributors, any one of 9 licensees. And the state has really been fumbling and bumbling to get to this point.
2.5 years later, it's actually shocking, Jerry. We're really almost at the 2.5-year mark from when MRTA passed. And, everyone acknowledged once that law passed that there would be this difficulty in rolling out guidelines and regulations that would encompass the directives of MRTA, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. I mean, the law was passed with this intention of a very progressive agenda, and they were trying to be a unicorn and a pioneer in the U.S. by having this agenda be ahead of mass market, multi-state operators kind of coming in and taking over and having this mom and pop shop mentality where smaller businesses could actually compete. But then what ended up happening was OCM created this distinct license, and we've talked about it numerous times on this podcast, the conditional adult use retail dispensary, also known as the card license. That license was for justice involved individuals. Those had been disproportionately impacted by the unfair or the disproportionate roundups and prosecutions during, the last generation of people, specifically those affecting many people of color, and really displacing people in their lives. So OCM decided to create a special license that went ahead of everybody else. And by doing so, it really created this constitutional crisis of whether or not that was even legal under MRTA to have a specialized license go first. So what you've seen since that card and the application went out last September in 2022. It closed at the end. End of September. And what was fascinating about that was OCM has been issuing these licenses throughout the year. It was very slow starting. Originally, it was only supposed to be 150 licenses. Then it was expanded and expanded again. Now there are over 460 people, 460 companies rather, that have licenses in New York State to open dispensaries because they met the qualifications of the card application. They've spent thousands of dollars. They've potentially bought, contracted for leases and for other types of byproduct collateral expenses relating to opening a cannabis dispensary. And out of Ulster County, a Kingston judge has actually supported and continued this injunction, which says, no, you can't proceed. Other applicants were entitled to the same starting point. Card may be unconstitutional. So now OCM really has egg on its face, and this is very frustrating. If any of our listeners tuned into the hearing yesterday, they would have heard over 2 hours of comments from the peanut gallery, from those who have been adversely affected by the OCM rollout of the cannabis regulations, because there have been people who have put forth reliance on the scheme that OCM created to start their businesses: conditional cultivators, conditional processors, conditional adult use dispensaries that have put forth thousands upon thousands of dollars. Of course, we've talked about our clients and that reliance on there being a store to sell the product. Millions of pounds are sitting. They're rotting, they're molding, they're not getting sold because there's been this logjam. So in essence, what the court has finally concluded or essentially reiterated is OCM may have put the cart before the horse in their attempts to do good and in their attempts to create this progressive rollout of this, one of its kind in the U.S. Scheme. You really couldn't do what you wanted to do without codifying the card license as an amendment to MRTA. And that has not happened. There is no legislative body that has reconvened to even consider that.
Or let's, I think because you said it at the beginning, and it's worth saying again, the application period opens the first week in October.
Yes.
It closes the first week in November. It is very clear that the state has made its mind up now that after, tripping over its own feet for 2.5 years, that now they're going to open the gates to all types of licenses, so that the viewers out there should understand that this is really the once in a lifetime opportunity to make your application, hopefully through Ruskin Moscou Faltischek and our team. But this is the once in a lifetime opportunity to make your application for one of those categories. I think because of the lack of dispensaries around the state, you're going to probably see the state move a lot faster than you could have expected on these license applications. But again, time will be of the essence. And we would urge those of you who are watching to reach out for us so that we can help guide you through this process, because the process will move quickly. But Liz, I guess I'm still confused about one thing. If I'm a card license holder, am I stuck? Am I finished? Where do I go?
It's really confusing. And that is a question that's been asked of me over and over again since the injunction. So there's a long answer and a short answer. The long answer is no, they still have opportunity. The short answer is, what is the benefit of their opportunity? So many of the card applicants went forward to do this early application thinking they were joining a marketplace that they had essentially an unfair advantage in, that they had this first to market kind of intention. And what's happened is that only 23 stores have opened across the state, even though 460 plus license holders have the authorization to open. And so for this large majority, overwhelming majority of card license holders, what I'm hearing from people in the community is, well, can I forfeit this license? Can I now say, forget this? This wasn't giving me the opportunity I had thought of. Can I go and apply for just a different adult use license that I might have originally applied for, but for the fact that I was offered this opportunity? And that's a very curious question, and it's going to confuse OCM. Just to point out a parallel, yesterday's hearing also had some amendments and adoptions. One of them was the amendment or the adoption of Etane's regulatory request to change some of their members and to change some of their controlling members. It passed, but it is important to note that they filed all their paperwork back in April to get a verification and an approval in mid-September. Now imagine all of these different card applicants quickly filing to have their opportunities change up. We've seen over and over again the delay and the slowness to act by OCM, though the law requires their approvals throughout the system. This is yet another sort of egg on the face moment for what's happening. And I'm concerned that card applicants who are stuck in this injunction may really have lost all of their competitive edge.
Well, I think it's fair to note that if you're a card applicant and you have some concerns, it's worth reaching out for Liz or myself at 516-663-6688. And ask for Elizabeth Kase or Jerry Kremer, and we'll try to give you the assistance that you need. So, but now, I gather, and you correct me, Liz, if you're a woman business owner, if you're a disabled veteran, if you're just John or Mary Smith, and you're a successful business owner, and you'd like to have a dispensary or a recreational room or whatever else that comes with it, now is the time to think about applying, because this is the once in a lifetime chance.
So now we're going to look at the upside, because of course there's a yin and yang relationship to what happened yesterday. Yesterday was a great day for success and for excitement for basically everyone else in the cannabis space who's been waiting for the opportunity to jump into New York. The green light yesterday means that everyone else finally gets to go to the starting line. And that also includes potentially medical operators who are looking to expand the registered organization framework of New York State, as well as, of course, any other social equity applicant, including people who were disproportionately impacted, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, disabled veterans, and also distressed farmers. So if you fit into those categories, it's now your turn too. So there is still space for a social equity applicant to apply, but there's also space for anyone to apply who doesn't meet those specialized qualifications. So yesterday was a very exciting day of promise for a great majority of New Yorkers who are looking to get into cannabis.
Yeah, and I think it's really worth stressing that we've been getting questions over the last 2.5 years from people is, when is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? And, when we always hedged our answers because we really didn't know. And now, because of the criticism that the agency has gotten, and one or two of the key officials has now resigned, so one has to assume that there may be a connection with the failure of the program, although not for us to judge, why that person's leaving. But the fact of the matter is, the program is now, because of all the problems that it's had, it's alive and well, and really a great business opportunity for people who want to be in the cannabis business. Right, Liz?
Yes. Absolutely. So, the time is now. We've had many false starts. We've had many changes, fundamental changes to the scheme of cannabis in New York State. For example, in the beginning of all this, it was required that you had your real estate solidified. That is not true anymore. Now you can apply for a license without knowing the space that you wish to occupy. That's a major shift. Also, the way that cannabis businesses are being funded and capitalized has shifted. There's something called a true party of interest, or a TPI. The definition of a TPI has changed so much so that, and I'll just give you a little bit of background. The reason in the beginning that it was so strict and stringent was to prevent one player from dominating the cannabis space, again, to sort of bifurcate and fractionalize ownership interests so that one person or one entity couldn't kind of weave their way through many different businesses. Well, the TPI, or true party of interest, designation has also shifted to allow a greater investment level without rising to the level of a TPI. So that means that if you are somebody who's looking to invest in multiple businesses, there is a way to do that now that wasn't available to you in early cannabis in New York. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I just think that, clearly we had hoped that it was the little guy, guy or gal was going to be the one who's going to get in online, and be ahead of the game. And we think that obviously that time period allows you to, but it is only a question of time before the big boys, really get into the
girls.
Big boys and girls do that. But Liz,
Yes.
We've covered so much in a short time, and I guess it's fair in behalf of both of us to remind people the first week in October is the beginning of the clock ticking, and the first week in November is when that clock stops. So if you're interested in one of 9 cannabis licenses, give us a call and let us fill you in, because, this is the group that knows what the story is about cannabis. So Liz, thank you for so much information, because you could do another hour by yourself because you've got so much, stored away. But we're going to be back shortly in another week or so with more information. So please look forward to hearing from us, because we're looking forward to hearing from you.
Absolutely, Jerry. Until next week, I imagine there'll be lots of changes in the days to come. Just for our viewers and listeners to know, this Friday, again, that court case will be heard up in Ulster County, and that may shed some light on the way the rest of this is going to shake out.
And we'll be back to talk about it. So thanks for joining us on Cannabiz.
You've been tuning into Cannabiz New York with your hosts Elizabeth Kase and Jerry Kremer from the law firm of Ruskin Moscou Faltischek. You can find the show about updated cannabis insights at www.rmfpc.com and on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and more. Thank you for your positive feedback, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others. The information presented by Ruskin Moscou Faltischek PC cannot be copied or rebroadcast without consent. This podcast is made available by the lawyer or law firm for educational purposes only, as well as to give you general information and a general understanding of the law, not to provide specific legal advice. By using this podcast, you understand that there is no attorney-client relationship between you and the podcast publisher. This podcast should not be used as a substitute for competent legal advice from a licensed professional attorney in your state.